Hi, my name is Connie and you're watching the video Measuring in 9 Positions of Gaze, Maddox Rod. In this video, we'll be discussing how to utilise the Maddox rod in measuring the deviation in the 9 positions of gaze. Okay, so the principles that you've learned already regarding the Maddox rod in concomitant strabismus apply to measuring a patient in 9 positions of gaze. So whilst in concomitant strabismus we simply learned about how to utilise the Maddox rod to assess the deviation or measure the deviation at near and distance, we can now do this for the 9 positions of gaze. Again, as before, you'll have to dim the lights in the room or perform this in a dark room and decide whether you're going to measure the horizontal component or the vertical component. And you'll recall that the line that the patient sees will be perpendicular to the orientation of the rods. So in the image above, we have the rods vertical and the patient will see a horizontal line. In this instance, we're measuring a vertical deviation, and in the image below, we have horizontal rods and a vertical line. And in this instance, we're looking at a horizontal deviation. So with the Maddox rod, recall you have to measure each component individually, the horizontal and the vertical. Let's just briefly revise what we expect a patient to see. In the top row, we have us measuring a horizontal deviation or the horizontal component of a deviation. And in A, what we see is no deviation, or what the patient will see when the prism neutralises the deviation. And B and C reflect uncrossed and crossed diplopia or crossed images, dependent on which eye the rod is in front of. In the second row, we have the vertical deviation being measured. A again is no deviation or neutralisation of deviation. B indicates we have a hyper deviation because the line is down, and C indicates we have a hypo deviation because the line is up. Okay, so when measuring the deviation with the Maddox rod, you'll obviously need to move the eyes into each of the position that you're interested in assessing. You'll start with the primary position and then move into those positions. As with the PCT, you have the option of moving the head or the eyes, but you will need to move the head if you're measuring in the distance. So if we look over to the right, the patient here has been moved over into left gaze, and I think she's slightly in depression, so lavodepression. And you'll ask the patient where the line is in relation to the light, and you can see there she's depicting this with her fingers. You'll then take the prism to neutralise the deviation and ask the patient when the line bisects the light or runs through the line, and this will indicate the size of the deviation. So remember that with your prism, the apex of the prism is in the direction of where the line needs to be, and you can also work out if you've got a crossed image, you've got an exodeviation, so it's base in, or if you have an uncrossed image, then you've got an esoddeviation, base out. If we look at a few examples, here we have a right esotropia with an uncrossed image, and what we'll need to do is put a base out to move that image to run through the light. So we can see the apex is in the direction that the line needs to move, and the base is consistent with what we expect with an esoddeviation, it's base out. Let's have a look at a vertical deviation. This is up and this is down, and what we have here is a right hyper, so you can see that eye is just focusing upwards. And in this instance, because the eye's up, the image is down, and so we need a base down to accommodate the fact that we have a hyper deviation, and we can see again that the apex is towards the direction that the line needs to move in. Okay, so upon completion of this examination, you'll actually have asked the patient to indicate to you where the line is in relation to the light in all positions of gaze. And of course, if you've also used the prism, you will have a measurement for each of these positions. And here we see a patient who's been measured in 9 positions of gaze, and we can actually see where the greatest deviation exists. And in this particular instance, we can see that the greatest deviation is here in dextrodepression. So here in primary, we have a high bow deviation with the line being above the light, and we can see it increases in right gaze and decreases in left gaze. And we can see that increase occur specifically down here with the greatest deviation being in that dextrodepression. If we had the values for each of these positions in terms of the prism being placed on top of the Maddox rod, you would also see this increase occur. Remember that the prism will always go in front of the Maddox rod when assessing the size of the deviation. Okay, in terms of recording it, it's exactly the same as we record the prism cover test in 9 positions. In this particular instance, I've given you an example where an orthoptist has elected to simply do primary position, right gaze and left gaze as being the only positions of particular interest. So in summary, you can utilise the Maddox rod to assess a patient in 9 positions of gaze. You just need to apply the principles that you learned regarding the Maddox rod in your last semester subject to measuring the patient beyond primary position. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of this video. Thank you for watching.